Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. The Grand Chief of the Nishnawbe Aski Nation says they're providing support to the family of Deborah Anishinabie as police continue to investigate her death. Thunder Bay police say Anishinabie was murdered in December 2024 and that a search is now underway at a local landfill in connection with their investigation. Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler says the death and subsequent investigation have taken a tremendous toll on Anishinabe's family, adding her parents have both passed away in months following her death. Fiddler says while the search for human remains at a landfill is horrific, he's grateful that the family did not have to convince the authorities to begin a search.
The Thunder Bay Police, I think since the disappearance of Deborah in early December have been very respectful in terms of communicating information to the family and the community. And now with the search happening, that they are now being joined by the OPP and our own police service, Nishnawbe Aski Police Service, I think is a good example of collaboration and partnerships and solving these horrific crimes.
Grand Chief Fiddler says the case shows that Indigenous women and girls are still in danger since the release of the report into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. He adds very little has been done on the part of the federal and provincial governments and other organizations to meet the report's recommendations. To Manitoba, where police are investigating a series of fires at the constituency office of a cabinet minister. It's one of two ongoing investigations into vandalism at two separate NDP MLA offices in Winnipeg. The constituency office of MLA Bernadette Smith is seen here with scorch marks and boarded up windows. Winnipeg Police Service's Major Crimes Unit says they are investigating 4 different fires at the office since the beginning of August. Smith's office and that of MLA Nahani Fontaine have both recently been vandalized, according to a provincial spokesperson. Fontaine's office and its windows were smashed last weekend. Both ministers are First Nations women, the first to ever sit on Manitoba's ministerial cabinet when the NDP were elected in late 2023. Smith is also Red River Métis. Police have not said if all of the incidents are connected. And a provincial spokesperson says both Smith's and Fontaine's constituency offices will remain open and appointments for services can be scheduled through phone and email. Protest against Quebec's proposed Bill 97 to modernize the forestry industry continues. The Assembly of First Nations of Quebec and Labrador have united with multiple unions, band councils, and environmental organizations. As Savannah Craig reports, the groups say this version of the bill is unacceptable.
Tensions have been high between some First Nations groups and Quebec's forestry industry for months. This is due to Bill 97, a legislation which intends to modernize Quebec's forestry industry. Quebec has called in a new forestry minister to handle the bill, but many First Nations councils and groups are contesting Bill 97 over what they say is lack of consultation with First Nations. This guardian of the territory says he hasn't had any contact with the new minister, Jean-François Simon.
Depuis Mamou, on n'a eu aucun contact, aucun gouvernement, membre du gouvernement.
Dave Petitquay has been staging protests in the form of blockades and sending eviction notices to logging companies in response to Bill 97. Petitquay is part of Mamou First Nation, self-described as a coalition of guardians of the territory and hereditary chiefs that do not represent elected chiefs and councils. A new development in the fight against Bill 97 has been announced. The Assembly of First Nations of Quebec and Labrador, alongside unions representing more than 20,000 forestry workers, environmental groups, and Réseau ZEC, which represents hunting, fishing, and camping zones in Quebec, have put forth a letter denouncing Bill 97. One of the union's signatories says Quebec shouldn't move forward with the bill.
Il est mort et enterré, ce projet de loi-là. Il doit être mort et enterré. On doit reprendre l'exercice avec transparence. Parce que ça, c'est le grand défaut de tout le processus qui a eu lieu. Le déficit de transparence.
L'aspect de base, c'est la reconnaissance de nos droits ancestraux et titres.
AFN-QL Regional Chief Francis Vero Paul says while the current forestry regime needs a change, it cannot happen with the current version of Bill 97.
It cannot be made without preserving the biodiversity, our way of living, the sustainability of our forests. And as of now, the Bill 97 is really unbalanced. It just prioritizes the exploitation of the forests.
The need for a change is what's pushing Quebec to modernize the industry.
Vous entendez les gens présentement dire que ça n'a pas d'allure sur le terrain, c'est l'ancien régime forestier. On n'a fait aucun changement à ce régime qui est là depuis des années.
But some want more than just a change to the forestry regime.
C'est l'actuel régime qui devrait être retiré comme il faut. Pas le 87. Le 87, ça vient carrément empiéter nos droits ancestraux, qui vient tuer aussi certains exercices qu'on exerce dans des territoires spécifiques.
Petaquay says MAMO was not approached by the AFN-QL to counter Bill 97. The forestry minister did not respond to our request for an interview before our deadline. Petaquay says he will continue to exercise his rights.
C'est un exercice de souveraineté ancestrale qu'on a fait.
Savannah Craig, APTN National News, Montreal.
The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is 1 week away. Joining us today to talk about September 30th and some other important issues is Minister of Indigenous Services Canada, Mandy Galmasti. Minister, appreciate you taking some time for us here today as we head into September 30th. What do you think the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation should mean to all Canadians?
Well, Jeff, thank you for having me. You know, September 30th is a very important day, not just for Indigenous people, but for non-Indigenous people as well. I think it's a period of time where you have the opportunity to reflect. My hopes and my recommendations to First Nations, to any Indigenous organizations, is really create that safe space to give the opportunity for, our supporters, our allies, and those who are looking for information to be able to ask those questions. I think that's a big part of September 30th for me.
We're coming up on the 10th anniversary of the TRC's final report, and there are some indications that reconciliation has stalled, or maybe that this government has moved beyond that. One example would be the clawing back of funding for searches for unmarked graves. Is reconciliation, at least in terms with the federal government, at a bit of a standstill?
I don't know. I think for me, I'm working with the Prime Minister, who's probably made one of the boldest statements on reconciliation by having an Indigenous Minister of Indigenous Services Canada. And for me, that is really that first step into where I think we're going with reconciliation, with it shifting into the next space, the action behind reconciliation. That's what I'm looking for. Yes, there's a long period of time, where we had the recommendations from TRC. They are complete up to a certain percentage, but it's an ongoing work. I don't think that reconciliation is on a timeline. It takes the time that it needs for it to be done appropriately.
Right. Moving on to another issue that certainly falls under reconciliation, though. In August, the Canadian Human Rights Tribunal ordered Ottawa to get back to the table to negotiate a national agreement on long-term reform for First Nations child welfare. But the government's now legally challenging that order. How come?
For me, truth and reconciliation speaks to trying to ensure that whatever work I bring forward as a minister speaks to the truth of the reality of First Nations, what they're looking for, reconciling, ensuring that what I bring forward really aligns with the needs of the community. I spent all summer doing engagement, speaking to First Nations leadership, really hearing from them what their expectations were from that next step. I think this file is probably one of the more challenging ones on my desk. We've seen it advance, we've seen it step back. We've seen it go onto a new path. For me, I really want to be sure that whatever decision I bring forward as a minister aligns with what I've heard from leadership. That means that it takes the time that it takes to be able to really have the proper process in place in responding to the needs of First Nations children. Whatever we decide and how we decide, we have to ensure that everybody around the table responds to the responsibilities that we have for First Nations children, not just for a short period of time, for the integrity of what those terms of agreements are. So for me, I'm trying to create the space to really respond to that. There is, a process that was applied for in court. We're looking to see what the tribunal is going to respond in terms of the questions that we're asking to clarify. But I'm really trying to keep in line with what I've heard from First Nations, and that's really, them defining what those steps are for child and family services in their community.
Right. A recent APTN news story revealed the confusion amongst Indigenous Services Canada officials about what was eligible for or is eligible for federal funding under Jordan's principle. If Indigenous Services officials are unsure what qualifies, how can First Nations families have confidence that the government will provide funding for the services their children need?
Jordan's Principle is such a critical program for so many families that are looking to access services. When the operational bulletin came out, it was something that, the government took a decision on. For me, as an Indigenous person, I think when you invite community into that discussion and you ask people to determine what are the parameters of this program, how can we apply it and keep the integrity of Jordan's Principle, how can we protect it? Those are big questions that I've also spent a lot of summer engaging on. There's a lot of change in this process. For me, ensuring that we bring Jordan's Principle to the place that I've heard his father speak to, the integrity of what the program is supposed to address, is really at the forefront of families' questions. In looking at the application and looking at the backlog, I think those two things are really signals that there needs to be a refinement to Jordan's Principle. It needs to align better with the needs that families are expressing in a timelier way. And we need those tools to be able to offer that service to First Nations. That's why I think it's critical to have that discussion and engagement to be sure that the solution that we bring forward to try to correct these processes aligns with their needs and aligns with what they're looking for from Jordan's Principle.
Minister, we'll have to leave it there, but appreciate you always taking some time for us.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Time to step aside for a quick break. When we come back, a look at how Indigenous midwives are reclaiming birthing practices. Stick around. Welcome back. The birthing process is often stressful for many Indigenous women who must travel out of community to give birth. Indigenous midwives are reclaiming birthing practices in their communities. Kim Sullivan got to meet a group of young women studying to be themselves birth keepers up in Labrador.
This small group of students just graduated from their second year of this new Innu midwifery project in Shishishi, Labrador.
Indigenous midwifery, I feel, is very homegrown. It's like your aunties taking care of you, your grandmas, your sisters. They're ceremony keepers, they're birth keepers. They're so much more than a primary care provider.
The 4-year program aims to reintroduce culturally appropriate care with community-based Indigenous midwifery education, training, and eventually services.
Having a provider who you're comfortable with is extremely important.
Gisela Baker is the implementation coordinator for the program.
We've been working on this project since 2017, and Thea Panashwi is our health manager. She's been spearheading this project, being interested in Innu midwives and returning midwives to Innu communities.
Back in 2020, Thea Panashwe insisted on a tent birth, the traditional Innu way of birthing that had not been done in decades.
If you were to have a midwife, you have the same person with you that supports you through the whole pregnancy.
She, along with the Innu Roundtable, are hoping to make the practice more common. They brought in experts like Becker to help implement the course.
Healthcare in remote Canada and in rural Canada is very challenging.
Midwife by trade, Becker immigrated from Germany to Nunavut in 1995 to help with the Rankin Inlet Birthing Project. She was surprised by how much the memories of traditional birthing were still alive within Indigenous communities, but not the practice.
In other countries, midwifery is so much more established and really accepted as a mainstream service that most people give birth with a midwife globally. And in Canada, we are still lagging behind.
Erica Corbett is a maternal child epidemiologist, a midwife, and a consultant who has helped many Indigenous communities around the world to bring birth back to the land.
When you are out of that kind of hospital institution, it reminds you as a provider, oh, I'm here to serve this person rather than the other way around.
Emma White says midwifery is more than just catching babies.
There's so much more that we can do for the community, like reproductive health and family supports and really anything that they need help with during that time or before or after.
The Innu midwifery program not only provides menstrual products, baby bundles, pre- and postnatal information, but also offers an alternative for women who often have to travel a long way alone to give birth in hospitals. That was the case for Kim Brittle.
My son was 3 months old when I started the midwifery program. I ended up having like a hard time with my pregnancy on the end of it because I ended up getting like pregnancy hypertension. And I also ended up having to leave Goose Bay and go give birth in Lab City because the obstetric unit was closed. And I was so upset because like I felt so alone, like not having anybody.
Back home with her son, Brittle felt the lack of postnatal support.
I didn't even know how much, formula to give him, and sometimes I was overfeeding him and like didn't know how to properly take care of a baby. It was just like babies given to me.
Samantha Andrew is from Nashtrushish, an hour-and-a-half plane ride from Happy Valley Goose Bay. She also had to fly in to give birth and has yet to bring her now 3-year-old back home due to a heart condition. She says that language adds a barrier to hospital births.
Like I know a lot of people like try to speak their language when they're in labor, but they can't. Because the nurses are from Goose Bay, they speak English.
Reclaiming Indigenous birthing practices will bring back cultural safety, but also give women a restored sovereignty over their bodies.
The most surprising thing that I learned in this program was learning like the autonomy that you can have over your own health care. Like at first, before that, like I had no idea that you can say yes or no.
The birth back movement, it's growing, it's spreading, and I think healthcare is going to look different in a lot of Indigenous communities in the coming years.
In Quebec, On the Mohawk territory of Kanesatake, workers at the health center would agree.
Red raspberry, it's a uterine tonic, so it's excellent for women.
They saw their first home birth in 50 years. A healthy baby boy came into the world in their multi-generational women's space.
Social health, where do we start? It's really big. And that's a part of the vision of the Nishnawbe Health Center. So we started with birth, and we looked at birth and how we can, get families healthy right from the start. And we said, wouldn't it be great if we had a birth space? And we made it happen.
These students are also making it happen, reconnecting birth back to the land. Soon, they will be themselves catching babies.
I think I'll be crying first before even the mom or the dad cries.
Kim Sullivan, APTN National News, Shishashi.
Thanks, Kim. Her debut novel was shortlisted for a Governor General Award. Now Christy Jackson is back with a new novel. Details on that and more after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Crow, an eagle, and two bears. A rare shot captured by Kimberly Kirkness and Tatasquiac Cree Nation in Manitoba. Thanks for sharing that with us. If you have a picture that you want to show off, send it to share@aptn.ca to be featured here on TV. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the East Coast, plenty of sun and 21 in Fredericton, 18 in Halifax, 15 in Kuujjuaq, 11 in Nain, sunny and 24 in Montreal, cloudy and 15 for Chibougamau, 21 under the sun in Sault Ste. Marie, North Bay, and Ottawa, 19 in Thunder Bay, cloudy and 16 in Sioux Lookout, sunny and 24 in God's Lake, sun's out and 26 for the Pas, 26 under sunny skies in Winnipeg, 28 in Dauphin, 30 and sunny in Regina, 28 with the sun out in Saskatoon, 17 in Meadow Lake, cloudy, and 15 in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 17 in High Level, Peace River, and Fort McMurray. 17 in Edmonton, sunny, and 29 in Lethbridge. 21 under the sun in Vancouver, 23 in Kamloops. Cloudy and 14 for Prince George, 7 in Smithers. +1 in Old Crow, a high of 9 for Whitehorse. 11 in Yellowknife and Wrigley, 12 in Norman Wells. +1 in Sax Harbor, 6 in Paulatuck. 12 in Chesterfield, 15 in Arviette. -2 in Resolute and Arctic Bay with snow. A land-based arts facilitator at the Deborah Anishinabie Storytellers on Manitoulin Island is participating in Ontario Culture Days, which offers over 1,000 free events across Ontario over the next few weeks. Ashley Manitowabe is putting the finishing touches on his creation called Land Speaks. He says it's about bringing awareness to creation with the thought of getting people to reconnect with Mother Earth, as it reflects back to some of his historical teachings. His installation will be available for public viewing on September 24th at the Deborah Anishinabie Festival.
I'm going to have an installation cube that's actually 6 by 6 by 6 foot feet, a cube. It's going to have 4 panels. Each panel is going to have an image. One's going to have an image of a bird. Another one's going to be a bear. Another one's going to be a tobacco leaf. And the final side's going to be a fish. So based on those 4 teachers, like you're thinking about all the things from above to below and bringing those mnemonic reminders to people.
I know we promised you the story on Christy Jackson's latest novel, but we'll have to bring you that tomorrow, as that is all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Tuesday. Of course, for news anytime, you can find more over on our website, aptnnews.ca. And we will be back here at 1 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow for your first look at Wednesday's news. I'm Dennis Ward. Marcy Miigwech, thanks for being with us. Stick around for an encore presentation of Face to Face with our guest, Paul Barnsley. That's up next. Have a great night.